Yesterday I reviewed Atlantis Attacks, the whole crossover, and it was a long video, but what was even longer was how long it took to upload it. It took about 9 hours. Now I like doing that video, but I didn't really get a look at the stories that in depth or individually. So I thought I'd do a video reviewing just this issue of Thor that is part of Atlantis Attacks. This is the penultimate chapter, which means it's the second off last part of the crossover, but it's kind of like the big finale in my opinion. What you need to know is basically some baddies have summoned an evil serpent god to Earth, and they have kidnapped some female heroes to be its brides. In the part before this, it was an issue of Avengers. It ended with the Avengers. They were there when the serpent god arrived on Earth. And this one, it's a Thor issue, but it's basically just the Avengers again. There's Thor, played by Chris Hemsworth. There's Kazar. There's Doctor Strange, Benedict Cumberbatch, and there's the Thing from Fantastic Four. And we open up this one with Thor, Kazar, and the Thing. They are going to Doctor Strange for some help. This was like a little subplot in the Avengers issue. The Avengers, they left Thor, Kazar and the Thing behind to relight the second wave of attack, which is a bit daft because Thor and Kazar are both pretty powerful. And the team they actually took with them, the Wasp and the Smurf Man from the Excellent Men. They get to Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange is wearing an eye patch for some reason, and then we find out on the next page that the Thing, who is easily the weakest of this quartet, he's even less useful because he's actually lost his powers, and now he's just wearing a costume. Now Thor is talking about how Thing and Kazar, they have both been possessed by the Serpent God before, because there's this thing called the Serpent Crown, which is a hat that when you put on your bonnet, you become like a slave to the serpent. Doctor Strange, he was kind of possessed by it too, but this story I think actually forgets that. Thor, he wanted to get all the people that have worn it together, but Charlotte Witch, she has been kidnapped to be one of the brides, and Seaman, he's meant to be dead, so he couldn't get them. And there is Madam Hydra there. She was in Atlantis Attacks at the start of the story, and honestly, I really, really, really fancy her. Like, she is gorgeous. Like even just here, where it's just her head, I really do fancy her. She's beautiful. The four of them, they decide to go off to fight the Serpent God with the rest of the Avengers, and there's a big picture there. The Serpent God, he has got 7 heads, and the Avengers are fighting him, and you can see here, the Wasp stings, they're doing nothing against the Serpent God. Wonder Man, which is Wonder Woman, when she transitioned, he's really strong, but even he's not doing anything against the Serpent. And the Smurf Man, he's basically just a hairy acrobat. He's useless in this fight. But even like Katy Perry, actually really fancy her as well. She is probably the most powerful Avenger at the minute. But even her sexy magic is having no effect on it. It's like just shrugging off the sexy spells. And Captain America, the best superhero in all the world of all time, his shield's not helping. Iron Man's lasers are doing now. And the Vision here, I don't know what he's really meant to be doing. I think he's like throwing the head down against the ground, but Wonder Man, he's already got the strength angle covered. I think the Vision probably should have used his phase and ghost powers to like go through it, because maybe that would have been something that would affect the Serpent God. Then there is Gore. There is the baddie that summoned the Serpent Thing, and there's some of the brides there. I covered them in the other video. Thor and the Thing, they want to fight the Serpent Thing, but Doctor Strange says, judging from how the other Avengers are doing, that they're probably better off going into the Serpent's dimension to try and fight him that way. Before I go on though, this page here, I think some people might say it's a bit like a checklist, like he's just going through the Avengers members and going, oh, well look, their powers aren't doing anything. But I quite like this. I think it's good that they considered every member and they wanted to show them all fighting it. in my opinion, if I was writing this, I would probably give each member 3 panels each, so they can all have like a little scene that is theirs. I think that is how you should write a team book. Like every member gets something to do, and if I hate it when they sometimes just forget about certain characters or ignore them. Like if Katy Perry had been like ushered into the background of this one, you'd be asking all the time, why isn't she not like, maybe her sexy magic powers would have beat the Serpent. But yeah, they've decided to get the Serpent into his own dimension, and for them to travel into the dimension, they're going to go through his body. So the 4 heroes let the Serpent God eat them, which must be a horrific sight, a horrifying sight for these Avengers, because they will have just seen Thor and Kazar and Doctor Strange show up, and they'll be thinking, finally we've got some fucking class A power here to help fight this thing, and then like the next second they just got gobbled up. I said last time in the review of the whole thing, I really like this page. It's a fun bit of storytelling. It's the 4 of them breaking through the barrier into the Serpent's dimension. Then they're through, and it's all trippy and psychedelic, and the Serpent God came through with them, and he's turned inside out. Or maybe this is like his true form. That's just my speculation, but if this is his home dimension, then maybe this is his true form. And it's not just my speculation anyway, because Kazar says it as well up there. Either way though, it is terrifying. Then we have got a fight between the 4 of them and the Serpent God. And it's really good actually. Even though it is on the cover a Thor comic, we get to see Doctor Strange and Kazar fighting it, and they're not entirely useless. They're all overpowered by the Serpent God really, but none of them are shown to be like incompetent. It's nice when books don't play favourites or only spotlight the title hero. With that said though, the Thing, he is useless in this. This is pretty much the only thing of any merit he does. Kazar, he gets knocked away, and the Thing grabs hold of him, stop him falling into the abyss of the dimension. Kazar even says here, Kazar says, if you hadn't caught me, I would have been pulled. It would have pulled me away, and I'd never have been able to find my way back. So they're all fighting it. Doctor Strange, he is using his magic. Kazar is using his cosmic powers, and then Thor, he's smashing its head in with a hammer, but the head just keeps growing back. And this bit, Thor, he turns away from the rest of them, and he uses his hammer to escape. And Thing, who has known Thor for years, he goes, oh, what a coward, he ran away. The Thing, he is a shit character. He's really shit. He's a shitty person. He judges and he thinks less of everyone else. Like, he always doubts that his girlfriend really loves him. He always thinks people only think of him as like a monster. He's just a piece of shit. And he looks like one too. He is actually Tom Beavort's favourite character, which I think says a lot. Doctor Strange though, he points out that Thor probably has a plan, and Kazar is saying that he hopes he gets it done quickly, because they're left alone to fight the Serpent God. And what Thor's done is, he has gone to he's realised they're no good in this fight, so he's gone to try and get some help from some more powerful people. Like, first he goes to Mother Earth, Mother Nature, and he asks her for help, but it's not really her way to interfere or be involved with stuff like that. So instead she tells Thor to go and try and get the god that lives inside the sun. Where did they get these wacky ideas? So Thor, he goes into the heart of the sun to talk to the god that lives there. And this character, he was actually from a Mark Griswold story. I've actually got that one. I might review that one next. Thor and the God and the Sun, they have a fight, and the God and the Sun, he's quite annoyed because, well, he's much more powerful than Thor, and he doesn't really like Earth. He worships the Sun. He's saying stuff here, like, it's really good. He's saying stuff like, what is Earth to me, that I should weep for it? Take away the sun, and in a passing instant, it would become cold and barren. But take away Earth from Sun, and the sun would go on burning for a billion eons, long after there was no earth to spy its raging solar flares 9 minutes after their violent birthing. I really like this God and the Sun character. There's his true form. He doesn't really appear that much in comics. I think they forgot about him. But what happens is he realises he wants to help Thor. But he needs Thor's energy to leave the sun, if I remember correctly. So he's like absorbs Thor. So we basically have, there is Thor there with the God of the Sun's power. It's basically just the God of the Sun's true form with a forehead. So like you could probably make this with action figures if you had a Thor and a God and the Sun. You could just swap the heads around. I very much doubt that the God in the Sun has ever had an action figure though. But we're back with the Serpent God and Doctor Strange and Kazar. They're still fighting it. And the Thing, he's so useless he almost gets ate by it. But then Thor shows up with the God and the Sun's power and he beats the Serpent God quite easily really. And then at the end, him and the God and the Sun, they part ways, and the God and the Sun's like, oh, well, see you later, and he leaves. And they all have to get back to Earth because now that the Serpent God's gone, his dimension is falling apart. So they get back to Earth with the other Avengers and Gore, he escapes. And then the next bit, all the Avengers are back together and they say they're going to go hunt down Gore and save the brides. To be continued in Fantastic Four. Now, I'm not going to cover this backup story because it doesn't really affect the main story. But this one here, I'm going to mention something. This one is like a power ranking thing. It is for listing powerful beings in the Marvel Universe and like talking about the power class. Now, I do something here that probably only I do. I like to think that this page takes place in between when Thor leaves and goes to see Mother Earth. I like to see this as him considering people that he could go to, powerful beings to help out. Like he's thinking, oh, I could go get some of my god friends like Tom Beaver and Tom Hiddleston, but actually I'm not doing that well myself, so maybe no. Or maybe I can get some other gods like Hercules, man, who's actually an Avenger and weirdly isn't in Atlantis Attacks at all. Or maybe I could go get me dad, Anthony Hopkins, or Zeus, and then we start getting into the really powerful things like the Beyonder, the Celestials, Eternity, Galactus, the Living Tribunal, stuff like that. So yeah, I like to think that this takes place in part of the main story because it's like considering the entire Marvel universe. There's some more backup stories about the fairy people from Fairyland. I'm not going to cover them, but I am going to talk about the story right at the back. This is Saga of the Serpent Crown. This is a really long story by Mark Griswold talking about the history of the Serpent Crown. I think this is like part 15 or something, so it doesn't really mean that much. But this is recapping a story, which is actually a story by Mark Griswold. And what he usually does is, when he's just recapping a comic that has already come out, he usually likes to insert things between the panels or behind the scenes to add a bit more meat to the original stories. And I really like this one. It's The Thing, Charlotte Witch and Captain Stingray, who also weirdly isn't in Atlantis Attacks at all. And this is basically when they were hunting the Serpent Crown. It's got art by Mark Bagley. It's good. I like it. Doesn't mean much if you haven't read the other parts, but this was probably the most ambitious of all Mark's like big continuity history pieces like that, because this one goes back to the very start of the Marvel Universe. But all in all, this comic, right, I'm going to say it isn't perfect. The art is just average, really. Actually, no, that's a bit unfair. I think it handles stuff like the inverted Serpent God really well, and the trippy dimension, and then there's that page, where is it? That page that I really like with them going through the barrier. So the art is above average, and the writing's fairly generic, but there is a whiff of Mark Griswold to the writing. The main story, it isn't by him, but it reminds me a bit of him, so that's good. The story could use a bit more fine-tuning, like the God and the Sun stuff kind of comes out of nowhere, but I do really appreciate this story. First time I read it, I actually didn't, but when I read the Saga of the Serpent Crown and the What If issue about Atlantis Attacks, I came to really like this one. I would say there is a pacing problem with the crossover as a whole, which hinges around this issue. This is the second of last part, but in this one we have the heroes defeat the big bad, the Serpent God. Like, the idea there is another part after this, it kind of feels like we've already climaxed with this one. What probably should have happened was that Thor, he's a fine villain, but the Serpent God, he was the big bad. So Thor should have been defeated as he brought the Serpent God to Earth. That way you can end with the big fight with the Serpent God without having to go another part to wrap up the loose ends with the brides once they've already overcome the greatest hurdle in this. The next part is alright though, it's just sort of whimpers because this one feels like the big finale really. As I said, I basically like this comic, so I'm going to rate it 7 thumbs up.